Mr. Robin Hardy. Mr. Hardy, 40 years for a sequel to The Wicker Man. Is it part of the curse of The Wicker Man that it is so difficult to pull this off?
Well, 40 years is mainly due to, hello, can you hear me? Yeah. Is mainly due to the fact that I was sort of waiting, doing other things, writing novels, other things, and wondering whether somebody would try and make a film in the same genre. Yes. For some reason they didn't. And then I heard that the film was being remade. And I'm not at all against remakes. I think the Thomas Crown Affair, for instance, if any of you have seen that, was a brilliant remake. I mean, it's perfectly possible to do that. So I waited until I'd seen that. And a certain amount of Schadenfreude. Do you do Schadenfreude in Flemish?
The same, actually.
It's the same when I saw it. But anyway, it led me to want to make another film in the same style. And as I said, I think before the film started, I think it is entertaining, which is after all what we're paid to do, to mix comedy and beautiful images and nice music and romance in this case with horror. So that's what we tried to do again, and I hope you liked it.
You decided rather than to remake it, which was a failure when the Americans tried it, or to do a direct sequel, which is something Anthony Schafer tried to get started, I think, during a long period.
They were.
Yes.
I never read the script, so I don't know what that was like. But I mean, there was an American company who, before we finished The Wicker Man, wanted there to be a great storm to put out the fire.
Yes.
And then that would have made it possible to have a direct sequel. I don't think what you've seen is a sequel. No. It has elements of style which are similar. I have perhaps tipped the balance a bit by putting Christopher Lee in there as who knows who. No one quite knows who he is. I don't know who he is. He obviously has something to do with the present story.
Are we supposed to figure out what, or are we just looking at the cameo?
I think it's very good for audiences to go and try and figure out, yes.
Some replay value to it.
Yes,
I see what you mean. Now, the best approach, seriously, was of course to do this as a revisit to the same themes, because neither a remake nor a sequel was going to work. Now, this revisit here is, as you noticed, as you said, in style definitely more funnier, a little bit more opener, perhaps less of a thriller, less of a horror than the original. Does that reflect in any way a change in your own belief?
Well, I would argue slightly with you in that I don't think it's necessarily funnier. Mm-hmm. The first one actually was quite funny, but people tend to forget the funny parts because they remember the horror at the end more strongly. Mm-hmm. And forgive me for those who didn't see the original film, but I think there's some very amusing scenes in the inn at the beginning, the landlord's daughter. I think that the scenes around the maypole with the schoolmistress and the policeman being increasingly shocked are quite funny. And so it goes on. There are jokes really all the way through. Maybe they're better integrated into the story in the sense, but I think they're there, and perhaps they're not quite as wide-ranging into subject matters in this film.
When you shot the original Wicker Man, you were working with icons of horror hammer films like Ingrid Britt Eklund, and especially, of course, Christopher Lee. Can you recall your experience working with these people on the shoot of The Wicker Man?
Well, Christopher Lee was a natural. The thing is that, as in this film you've just seen, I think it's very interesting to reverse the role that an actor normally plays, because actors like doing that, and it's rewarding for you and it's rewarding for them. Edward Woodward had played how could I say, a working class icon against police and authority and everything. And we completely reversed his role in The Wicker Man. He loved doing that. Christopher Lee became, in a sense, a proper actor instead of just an icon, which he had been as Dracula. And he loved that too. Britt Eklund had been really a model. I mean, a really top model, and she liked being an actress. That was fun for her. And I'm very fond of her performance. I think she was very, very good in it. We did dub her voice because, of course, she's Swedish, and she couldn't really have done the accent. But I think she did a very good job. A lot of people remember her dance.
Yes. Although not everybody knows that's not entirely her all the time.
Very, very small bit, isn't there?
The back bit. Okay. After you finished the film, what started was, I think, a bit of a tragedy almost. That doesn't happen to many movies. Your movie got cut up by the producing studio and released in a much shortened version. And after that, a series of events led it to get an almost cult status as the last movie, part of which the negatives ended up being destroyed, or at least part of the negatives, part of your cut. How do you remember those times?
Well, I think...
Or rather, you don't.
Well, the thing is, in a way they were very good times, because when the film was sort of half destroyed by the studio and put out as a sort of second feature, that was very disappointing. But I was going back to the United States where I'd been working before. And I was very encouraged because a lot of young students who had seen the press, because the press on the film was terrific, because they saw the original film. And they saw that and they decided, they came from the Tulane University in New Orleans, that they wanted to make a project of distributing this film around the US. And they were extremely capable. Between them, they and I raised the money for it. And we literally bicycled the picture from Great American City to Great American City, and its fame grew. And while it was painful to have had to restore it, painful to have to go through all that, it was very rewarding to actually do the distribution myself. And we're planning to do that in the UK. In America, the distributors, Anchor Bear, giving us a proper theatrical distribution, so we're very happy with that too. And we've yet to see what happens here in Europe.
Yeah. By the way, since so many cuts exist of the original Wicker Man, I think we can talk of at least 3 different versions. If we count American television as well. How about this film? Have you made the cut you want, or is there any kind of debate, discussion going on there?
None of my distributors are here.
No, right now.
No, I don't think this will be my final director's cut. However, having said that, I'm happy with this cut. And I think the thing is that the script was not widely liked by the British film industry. And maybe that happens to nearly all scripts. They didn't like the quirky things that happen. And there are a lot of quirky things that happen in it. They would say, why does he have to do that? It's not normal, it's not general. And so please take it out, and I didn't take it out, so those things remain. Few things have come out which I'd like to put back in. I think that's fairly general for directors' feelings about their films.
And quite possible these days, actually. Also.
And yes. Well, it's interesting, and I won't go on about this, but it is interesting that here in continental Europe and in the UK, we have, for writer-directors, as most, for instance, continental directors are, a thing called droit moral. And droit moral is a European law which actually extends over UK law. But in the UK, we're always asked to waive it, not to submit ourselves to it. It's partly anti-Europeanism, I think, but it's also because in American studios,
What in effect does it mean for you?
what it means that, for instance, in the case of The Wicker Man, they could not have remade it without my permission. But not just mine, because I was only the director. Tony Schaffer, who was by that time dead, and his heirs and designs. So they would have to go through all that legal business in order to be able to make the film. I've had in the past, I was doing a script on an André Moreau story, and I had to go to Paris and present the version that I was going to make of the story as a script to the family and the lawyers before permission was given. And I think that's quite right. But of course it's more difficult if it's just a director, or just a writer, the Roy Morale thing. But where you have the auteur thing, which I guess applies to the film we've just seen, then I think it should be respected as law. Sorry to make my little political speech.
Are there any questions from the audience at this time? Is er iemand die een vraag wil stellen? Ja.
Mr. Hardy, why do you choose Americans as your protagonists now? Why do you put Americans in Scotland as 40 years ago it was
A Scot.
It was a Scot.
Well, because it's very hard to find an evangelist in Britain.
Anymore, it used to.
We used to have them, yes, but not many now. So I think we're all aware that America is very much the home of fundamentalism and evangelical movements, and so it seemed the natural kind of casting.
I have a feeling this would probably not be your intention, but one way to look at the movie would be with a lot of glee, actually, with a lot of pleasure, in the sense that
It is my
these
intention,
stupid-
absolutely my intention.
Well, pleasure at the fact that these stupid evangelicals are getting what they deserve at the hands of another fundamentalist.
Well, I wouldn't put it like that.
Exactly.
I wouldn't put it like that. You notice there's a little cross at the end. I think they everyone gets maybe what they deserve, but if they deserve going to heaven, and if they do go to heaven. My view on the paganism Christian thing is you pay your money and you take your choice.
Yes, explain.
Well, if you believe
Yes.
in Christianity, and you believe that they were good people, which they certainly were, I tried to present them as good people, and if what they believed in is true, then they will live ever after. And in the case of the pagans, I've cheated slightly, because clearly Laurie's baby was not from part of the community.
Exactly.
However, we don't know that the next person she's with might not be. So, on verra.
Yeah. The Wicker Man definitely, and I think this movie too, stay ambiguous in terms of which belief system.
Yes, absolutely. It's true. Absolutely. I mean, I hope I put it succinctly in the speech that Lachlan makes when he says, "If I am a rabbi, oh, is my God, I'm a mullah, Allah the Merciful."
This is one of the things that strikes me in both movies. The pagan rulers of the island or of the village in question seem to be theologically much more astute, more aware than their Christian victims. Like Howie is a much more dedicated believer and has a hard time, I think, seeing the customs of the Summer Island from their perspective. Likewise, the evangelicals, of course, also.
Well, I think that's true. I mean, if we took a very cynical view, you might say, in order to be evangelical or fundamentalist evangelical, you might not need to be too bright.
Yes.
So I don't like to put it that way. I like to think of them as simple people with simple beliefs. And that my couple of young people, I think, so if they really thought about whether every word of the Bible was true, obviously they haven't thought, because they've been brainwashed.
Yes, that conversation in the beginning of the movie in the car about babies being born and going to hell felt a little bit like a discussion you had yourself at one time.
Well, it might be. It might be.
Any more questions? Jawel, er is minstens één. Wie? No, well, okay, let me continue then. With something. Some of the extras in the final scene belong to a kind of modern pagan group. Is that correct?
No, they don't. They don't actually.
Oh.
The people in the Beltane movement are young solicitors and young lawyers and accountants and so on and so forth. They're not actors or dancers,
Okay.
and they do that as a kind of entertainment.
Oh.
And I don't think they're serious pagans, but they want to make it look like that as much as they can. Every year, in the middle, on that hill, in the middle of Edinburgh, they have a huge demonstration of that faith on the 1st of May. And last time I saw it, which was about 2 years ago, when I cast those young people, and there were 17,000 people watching in the staid city of Edinburgh. It's quite surprising.
Yes. So there is a kind of, at least an interest now.
Oh, very much.
The pre-Christian religion in England.
And the riding of the laddie, I mean,
Yes.
the laddie ride, that takes place in 7 different towns. Of course, it doesn't end in the same.
How does it end? With a picnic or?
It ends with a picnic.
Oh, that's with a picnic,
Not a
seriously.
boring picnic.
When it was done for the first time, because I imagine it's a tradition, it goes back a long time. How did it end then?
Well, it goes back to beyond ancient Greece. Dionysus, yes.
Okay, we are seeing essentially a Dionysus
yes,
right,
ritual, that's right.
orgy.
And it's certainly pre-Christian in Scotland. But no one thinks of it like that. They have various excuses for it, one of which is that in a war with the English, the Scots king was killed, and his standard bearer, who carried his flag, managed to get through the English lines, and he rode back to Stirling Castle, where the Queen, who was the mother of Mary Queen of Scots, actually, and she was pregnant at the time with Mary Queen of Scots, and he laid the banner at her feet, and the laddie is supposed to celebrate that in some people's minds, but I think actually it's much older. Yeah.
Fine. Final opportunity for a question. Yes, you
Yeah,
can.
one more. Why did you change the title from Cowboys for Christ to The Wicked Tree?
For commercial reasons.
I thought so.
Having said that, you are planning a third film,
Yes, I am.
but it will not be called Wick or something. Have you run out of things that can burn?
I've run out of no, it's going to be called The Wrath of the Gods,
Okay.
because I think it's time that we had our revenge on the gods.
Oh, I thought it would be the gods taking revenge on us.
No, I think the gods have done pretty well
Yeah,
on
actually.
the us too, if you think of it.
You have a point.
So it's going to be broadly musically enclosed in the last musical act of the Götterdämmerung, of the ring cycle.
Yeah.
But we're going to take the various themes, Siegfried and Brunhilde and so on and so forth, and play games with them like we played in this film.
So will it take place during some kind
Well,
of
to
performance?
give you an idea, the Rhine maidens may turn out to be the Andrew sisters. Or something like, musically.
I see. Well, now that you've done it a second, you have to do a third to make a trilogy.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, yes.
Okay. We'll look forward to having you back here.
Thank you.
And watch it. Sir, thank you so much for coming here. It's
Thank
a
you.
pleasure and an honor.
Thanks for being here. Belgian beer.
Oh, wonderful.